Here today just to basically go over our AARP day at the Capitol. We're really excited. We said earlier around 80 registered, so it's going to be a fun day. It could be a little chaotic with all the people, but we're going to make sure that everybody's as comfortable as they can, and have some folks that can join you. We can't be all places at once, but we have some leadership volunteers that will help you move your way along in the Capitol if you haven't been to the Capitol before. We want to make this training in order for you to be as comfortable as you can during lobby day, and also answer any questions you have before lobby day. This is we did two trainings. It's not a two-part training. It's just we did one training during the day and one training in the evening, so it's the same training, but we will record this, as I said. This is basically meant to give you the basics, the issues, and then we'll have time, hopefully in the morning, if you can get there around 8:30, to actually go over this training again. Again, be flexible with this, be fluid. Things are changing fast every day in the legislature, so I could have different issues by the time we get there on the 23rd. But what we've done is try to keep you as up to date as we can with the legislative issues. So, as I said, I'm the state advocacy manager. My job is just to be the lobbyist in Frankfort. So usually during Frankfurt, during the legislative session, I'm in Frankfurt every day, helping lobby for AARP issues. AARP issues range very significantly. We have a policy book that covers a lot of topics. And if you ever need to know how AARP feels on a certain policy, you can Google AARP public policy book and then just type in whatever topic you're looking for. And you'll find most of them. There's certain issues that we don't get involved with. Now, I know there's a few folks that are on here for the first time. And so I'll cover some of the basics, but I just wanted to thank you all for being here, to recognize the Lexington community teams and the Louisville community teams that are on here. You all are great volunteers, and we thank you for everything, and including joining this training and participating in Lobby Day. You help us every step of the way, and we're truly selfless and do a lot of good things for the community. This will help folks. What we're looking for this year is a lot of folks are having trouble dealing with inflation. Everything seems to cost more now. There's everything from prescription drug costs are going up to groceries. So everybody is worried about inflation. So our policies this year are really focused on making life more affordable for the 50 plus. And I see that Dwight Butler's on. He's a former state representative. He was in there for quite a while, and it was a great state representative from Western Kentucky. And I wanted to have him say a few words about how important it is to lobby as a constituent of the legislators. And if you could take it away for a few minutes, Dwight, that'd be great.
Yes, Eric. And again, thanks for having me on here. It's always good to talk about Lobby Day, because that's where it all comes together for us, the legislature, former legislators. It is extremely important because the legislators are being hit by everyone. All different groups are wanting something, and really what we want is something that everyone needs. It's kind of what it comes down to. And the things that we're asking for, they can readily supply, or they can go along with. We're trying to help people. We're trying to bring fairness to seniors and save them money and get them respect and fair treatment. And so whenever we go in asking for these things, that's something that they can relate to. And caregiving and long-term care, most everyone has a family member or friend that's in some type of long-term care or has been and can associate with that. And again, as you said, the cost of everything has gone up so much. It's just incredible. And some hard choices are having to be made by many individuals. And so at this time, the state has extra money. This is not a budget year, but still they can move things that way or plant those seeds in their minds. But going and seeing them face to face is just, there's next to nothing for it. I mean, because, and it goes down to when you go to see your own legislator, it's good to see any of them you can, but if you see the one in your territory, your senators and representatives, you know, that's who you're being represented by them. You're voting for them, and they're responsible to you first of all. And so just tell them your stories, tell them what you're about and what we need. The team will lay out the plan. I like the issues, the way it's broken down, very clear, concise. And like I said, in the meantime, make sure and send emails to them, call them at their office. I don't recommend, I mean, it's good. You can do that to call on the green slips 800 number, but if you call their office directly, you will, your message will be written down and taken and given to them, and they're more apt to respond to it. And so it's all about relationships and just letting them know that we care about them. And that's one thing too to remember, is to thank them. You know, they may be doing some things you don't like, but chances are there's something they're doing you do like. And they're under a lot of pressure, and their time is very limited. And you know, we just have to go in there and have mutual respect. And if you give that to them, or another strong thing to get done, write them a personal note. I mean, every personal note will be read. You can just mark that down. You don't get a personal note, throw it in your garbage can. You know, it's going to be opened and read because it means something to them. And if you can just tell them you appreciate what they're doing and let them know that you'll be in touch, and you'll be just in a subtle way, let them know you're watching what they're doing. And it's very effective. And again, we have a great cause, and they know it, and they need to cooperate with us. So. Eric, you're on mute.
Thanks. The slide popped up and I got confused. So thanks so much, Dwight. He's one of our executive council members, and he does a great job for us as well in that position. And I believe our state president, Charlotte Whitaker, is joined by phone. And I'd like to hear from Charlotte about Lobby Day and how much she appreciates your participation.
Yes, Eric, I'm on. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, it's just so exciting to have this big day planned. You know, I know I've been going to these probably for 20 years, and you know, I know we've made a huge difference by showing up there. You know, we've got a group leaving here at 5 o'clock on the 23rd, and you know, that's a commitment, and I appreciate it so much. I know we did have 80 signed up. Do you know the numbers now, Eric, how many that are signed up?
Yes, right around that number.
Okay, well that's good, and it's going to be a great time to share our needs. You know, I've shared on Facebook with a person that was kind of bad mouthing me because who my company was last Thursday night, but you know, aging services is not a R problem or a D problem. You know, thank goodness over the 30 years that I worked with aging, I never had to ask, are you a R or a D, you know, in order to get the services. You know, I just feel like if a senior needs it, he needs the service today. The issue with the R and the Ds, of course, deals with funding. And, you know, there are more seniors today than there was yesterday, and that's just going to continue to be the pattern for the next probably 20, 30 years. So anything we could do to talk to our legislators to tell them the needs of seniors and how they want to stay in their homes. We all want to stay in our homes. We don't want to go to a long-term care. You know, there are times there's no other answer. I understand that, but we need more meals. All the senior services, we need to enhance them so more people can have quality care, whether it be caregiving or we can have folks to talk about fraud and scams and help our people to be protected. There's a lot on the news tonight about romance scams with Valentine's. So, if we can save one senior from losing a penny, then we've done our job as far as our fraud programs and our veterans. We appreciate them so much, and we want to help them any way we can. But I appreciate all of you on the call, and Eric, thank you for what you do. Of course, Dwight, I appreciate him so much. He and I go back a long way. So I'll turn it back over to you, Eric, and we'll do our training.
Yeah, along the lines of advocacy, and Charlotte could talk to this. I was going to mention it later in the program, but she was really involved with this. She's from Western Kentucky, and her area was affected by the tornadoes. Would you like to say a little bit about what we did with that?
Continue to installation.
Yes. I think somebody's not on mute. Maybe I hear something. But anyway, yes, it was. When it happened, I was. I'm trained with Kentucky Baptist, and I was asked to, travel to West Kentucky, and my husband had just had a little surgery, and I said, no, I think I'm going to stay and try to get some funding from the national office for our folks in West Kentucky. And, I really was thinking, oh, wow, 50,000 would be great. And then we get the call from Ron that we're getting $1 million for West Kentucky. And, my thoughts were the 10 entities that get this money, number one, they have to be transparent. They have to be in the helping people business. And they did a great job picking the 10 nonprofits to share our dream with the folks in West Kentucky, whether it be, ramps, apartments, furnished, or, so much good, and 100,000 for legal aid. They were all just great agencies to help the people. And we've heard the stories about how some of that money's been spent. In fact, Ohio County got 70,000 of the United Way money here for the homes that were destroyed here. So I was so excited that some of that money came back to my county to help my friends that lost their homes, and there were some veterans. And so it's, I've said before, some people don't like AARP, but how could you not like AARP when they gave $1 million to West Kentucky to help Kentuckians? Plus, there's been money that has gone to Eastern Kentucky as well to help those folks up there. So it's been they've just stepped to the plate. Of course, who would have thought we would have had 2 major disasters within about 7 months? But we did, and we're doing our best to take care of folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. I believe our leader, State Director Ron Bridges, is on, and if you'd like to say a few words, that'd be great.
Thank you, Eric. It was great to hear Charlotte, our president, as well as Executive Council member Mr. Butler, and the things that Mr. Butler was saying, and I want to reiterate, is the opportunity for us to have fun on Wednesday. And we talk about being the wise friend and a fierce defender of our members. This is an opportunity for us to be wise friends and educate our elected officials on Wednesday. We voted in November. Now we take it full circle and go and visit some of our electeds and help them understand what we're trying to do. It's to bring dignity and purpose to folks' lives, and our elected officials are key to making that happen, and they can't do it without hearing us raise these concerns and issues. So I'm excited to be a part of this on Wednesday, and really grateful to you all for making this a priority in your lives, because it does make a difference. If you're a voter and you're a constituent, they need and want to hear from you. Again, thank you, President Whitaker, and thank you, Mr. Butler, Executive Council member. Thanks, Eric.
You're welcome. And I believe Jack Hillard is on. I'd like to hear a few words from him about how he sees this legislative session going, what's involved with this short session, and just a bird's eye view. He's with the Limestone Group, which is a lobbying company that helps us with our legislative work. And Jack, are you on?
Eric, I am on, and I think my senior partner is on as well, Jason Baird, or at least he was. Jason, if you're here, you want to start?
Jack, I am on too.
Maybe
Yeah, but go ahead, Jack. Very excited to be on with you all tonight.
Go ahead, Jason. Well, this is a non-set, and I'd like all three of your previous leaders have all mentioned telling their story. That's the important part. Legislators very much listen to you. And so to really be there at the Capitol and to share your story, to say thank you. One of the bills that they're pushing very much right now is House Bill 2, may have already been sent to the governor's desk, but that would complete the appropriation funding for the new Veterans Center in Bowling Green. While it's not a budget session, they are still interested in financial issues, and they have sent already to the governor's desk House Bill 1, which would reduce our income taxes from 4.5% down to 4% the beginning of the next January 2024. And that's their overall theme of trying to expand the tax base through moving away from income taxes to more sales type taxes. So for us to go in and talk about our needs of healthcare, of security and income, we just have a very good story to tell and share and to say thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jack. Moving on, so a few things that AARP does. We do not endorse candidates or elected officials. For those that are new to us, we are nonpartisan. And we do not give money to candidates or elected officials or have a political action committee or anything like that. And we don't tell you who to vote for. We don't endorse candidates, endorse folks. But what we do is we raise visibility on issues for the people of 50 plus, and we work across political and partisan lines. As Dwight, he said, of course, we're good for all sides. Both sides like us. And we inform candidates of issues that matter most to the 50 plus. We provide basic information on where candidates stand on key issues. So you may see us do video voter guides, online voter guides, debates, things like that. But we do stay pretty nonpartisan. And we'll go through on how our meetings need to go to make sure we stay that way. But the first issue to make life affordable, I'll begin our legislative agenda portion if Daniel wants to change the slides there. And that's lowering the cost of prescription drugs. This is one thing that you might have heard us do federally. The Inflation Reduction Act was passed, and in that, Medicare price negotiation, which was a major part of that bill, passed as well. It's probably the biggest piece of legislation that's fighting the cost of prescription drugs, especially for those on Medicare, that we've ever had. So besides Part D way back in the day, but this is a really good piece of legislation that will work more as time goes on. We're able to negotiate prices it didn't for all, but it is a step in the right direction. That's what our federal team did. We do have chances to lower the price of prescription drugs for our state, though. And so I have a few bills that we're looking at to do that. And how do we do that? we really look at price gouging. You might have seen Martin Shkreli and those types of stories where overnight, the drugs that people needed went up 1,000%. There is some stuff that the state could do to try to help with this problem. And you can do it through affordability boards, any sort of thing that kind of keeps those the pricing transparent, so folks can say, hey, call those people out if it does look like price gouging. But what we do have right now is House Bill 141. And many of you worked on legislation in the past where we capped the price of insulin to $35 for those folks on the state plans. That means for expansion population, that means the state health insurance, those types of plans. It didn't cover everybody, but what we have right now is a bill that would kind of go along with that. This bill is House Bill 141, and it would create an emergency insulin program. Now, an emergency insulin program is a program between pharmacists and manufacturers that they agree to that will, for those who qualify, those that meet certain poverty lines, will be able to get insulin for a nominal cost or no cost. And so that bill is mainly intended for those people that didn't get that cap, don't have the insurance, those folks that just can't afford their insulin. So they will be in agreement with the pharmacist and manufacturer to supply those folks with insulin. Now, it's a bill that hasn't passed yet. It's a bill that's pretty revolutionary, and one of those, there have been insulin programs and those types of state programs that have worked in the past. And so this is just another way that we can, reduce the cost of insulin for folks. Now, we like to reduce it for all drugs, but any sort of piece of bite of the apple that we can get to help it make the price of prescription drugs more affordable for Kentuckians, we're going to do it. So as I go through these issues, I'm going to stop at the end of each issue. We have 3 major legislative issues that I'm showing you right here that you'll talk to your legislators with. So just, does anyone have any questions on prescription drugs? So when you would go into your legislative visit, you would tell them if you have a personal story about the cost of your prescription drugs or others that relate to it, you could say, I'm very concerned about the cost of prescription drugs. My insulin cost is outrageous if it wasn't covered by my insurance or something to that along that lines. And then you would just say, will you support House Bill 141 that would create an emergency insulin program? So that's simply how it would work. And then we have report back forms, and you can say yes or no, that person didn't support it. It's sponsored by Representative Danny Bentley, who's from Eastern Kentucky, and he passed our legislation for the capping legislation too. I do sense that it'll be a popular bill. Hopefully we can get it moving, but it also does do a lot of things. So it's probably going to have some hurdles with some folks that don't like it, like pharmaceutical companies, but we'll see. Our next issue of focus is family caregiving.
Hey, Eric.
Yes.
Just to pause, Robin Fisher asked a good question in the chat. Robin asked, are specific drugs covered or just insulin?
The answer is, let me get back to you on that. I will look it up. I believe it is just insulin at this time because it is called the emergency insulin program, but I will look into that. It could change. They haven't testified on the bill, so we're still getting details. It was just dropped about 3 days ago. So, but thanks for that question. That's a great question because those are often expensive as well.
Eric,
Yes.
I saw Dr. Bentley last Thursday night at the chamber dinner, and he's looking for people to testify.
Okay.
So
All right.
you might touch base with him. He said he needed some help, and I said I would have Eric, one of you all, to call. I said we'll do all we can to help you with this. So.
Great. there's 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 the importance of having our volunteer Charlotte on hand right there. That's awesome.
Well, yeah, well, last week I went to pick up Gerald's heart medicine, and the
Mm-hmm.
copay was $559. It's a 90-day supply, but
And
thank
that's,
goodness I was sitting down when they told me that. But
yeah,
so we went to a 30-day supply instead of a 90-day, and but fortunately we have the money to pay for it. But think of all the people that do not. I mean,
yes, yeah,
that's a whole lot just for that to
hmm
be the copayment. So.
right. And so, family caregiving is another major issue that AARP has really taken the leadership on. And many years ago, we passed the Family Caregivers Act that helped people with discharge, hospital discharge. It made sure that the family caregiver was involved. You all were instrumental in getting that legislation passed. That was sponsored by Senator Paul Hornback and Senator Julie Rocky Adams. I know some of you have Senator Julie Rocky Adams that are on this call, so that was great work done by her. Our next phase in helping family caregivers is workplace flexibility. It's not a budget session, so we won't be really looking at family caregiver tax credits, but that's another way we help out our family caregivers. So we do have some legislation right now that would provide some family leave. It's not paid family sick leave, but what it is basically caregiving leave. You could leave for your next of kin, obviously. It's for 12 weeks, establishing that Kentucky employers must allow you to leave for 12 weeks. It doesn't have to be paid. It's just you have to allow them to do that, whether it's for pregnancy or for taking care of a loved one, taking care of a family friend that's documented close to you. So that bill is House Bill 15, and that's sponsored by Representative Sherilyn Stevenson. And so that bill is currently filed. It hasn't moved yet. It's still, all these bills are still in their beginning phase because we're in basically the second week of session. And so some of these bills have moved, their priority issues have moved, but these bills are just now getting started. And also, yes, so that those things would work. There is another bill, Senate Bill 94, which will actually, what it will do is it'll allow more access to advanced practice registered nurses. And so in Kentucky, we have a big problem with having enough doctors. The doctors being in places that are in rural areas, some folks have to travel an hour and a half to see a doctor. Most of the time they're seeing APRNs. And so we just need to make sure that people have more access to APRNs, and there's some legislation that would help with that. And that's Senate Bill 94. So those are two family caregiving bills that we are supporting, and we'll work with our legislators to ensure they get passed. Does anybody have any questions on our family caregiving? Family caregiving is pretty much the backbone of healthcare in Kentucky. 630,000 family caregivers, providing, I think, there's millions of hours of work that they're doing just for unpaid. So if we lose family caregivers, we got a real issue, and we need to make sure that we support them any way we can.
I had a question.
Yes.
Is this 12 continuous? Or can it be broken up? Does it have to be taken together, or, 1 week here, another week there?
I'm sorry, for what?
For the family leave.
Oh, yes, it can be broken up. It can be broken up.
Okay,
It's not
great.
to exceed 12 weeks. So that's where yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And I think there's a little bit of leeway on if it's thinking about, it depends on the employer, how many days they offer, it's different for a lot of employers. So I guess it would depend on each employer, technically how many weeks that would be additional for that person. But yes, great question there. Yes. It's not 12 weeks at once, but it can be. Okay. Any other questions about family caregiving? If not, I'll move on to utilities. All right. So one thing in Kentucky that we've been fighting, and we've really tried to make sure that we've kept a grip on it, because every year LG&E, KU, any Kentucky Power, pretty much almost every year, those utility companies that provide your gas and electric, and they also, if you're in a co-op, they might outwardly supply that as well, like some do. They have tried to raise your rates, and I think all of us saw our bill last month, and oh man, we don't need any raises on those rates, right? So what we saw last year was there was a bill that would could possibly make it easier for those utility companies to raise your rates. So what we're doing is we're making sure that that doesn't happen. So utility companies basically have to go to the government to figure out, and the government in this case is the Kentucky Public Service Commission. They have to go to the government and say, hey, look, we need to raise rates because of X, Y, and Z. And they have all these different reasons, and then they'll ask for the moon, and then the PSC will look at all the evidence, the government will regulate it and give them another number back that's usually a lot lower. So to do this, to make sure that this keeps happening, we advocate for change, to make sure we will send public comments into the Public Service Commission, making sure that they know that affordability is a big issue out in the state. And so that's one thing that we want to keep. We want to make sure that there's the Kentucky Public Service Commission that's able to regulate and beat down these rate hikes. So that's one thing that we'll look at. There could possibly be a bill that is filed by then. But what we want to just tell our legislators is, please do not pass any legislation that could possibly raise our gas and electric rates. So it's a little bit aspirational. It doesn't have specific legislation right now, because it's probably a bill. All these other bills we're telling them to pass. This one we'd probably tell them not to pass. So that's basically what a lobbyist does, right? We get legislation and get it moving forward for it to pass because it's good, and then we have to stop legislation because it's bad. And so basically when you are going to talk to your legislators, you're doing exactly what a lobbyist does. And they're going to listen to you more than they are me, and they're going to have your face and your voice in their head when they're placing that yes or no vote. So I've seen people change their opinions on the floor of the House of Representatives and the Senate just because of the folks in their district decided they were going to stand up to this or needed help passing this. So does anybody have any questions about the utility rate? We do have other issues. There's a lot of other issues that we'll be covering and kind of working behind the scenes. We just wanted to focus on these three issues just to keep it pretty simple in your meetings. And I think with that, Daniel, if you want to go ahead and change the slide, and we'll get into the logistics of things.
Sure, glad to do that. And
right.
and while we're at a pause here, well, did somebody have a question before we move on? Okay. So while we have a pause here, I do want to go back to a slide that kind of lays out a little bit of what we're going to continue covering for the remainder of this time, and that what we'll refer to like our training agenda. We're going to talk about our checklist for our advocates. We're going to talk about scheduling steps, how to find out who is your legislator by using the lrc.gov website, and to locate your House and Senate member by looking up your address. The process for requesting a meeting for February 23rd, Thursday, other reminders, and then we're also going to talk about our day of agenda at the Capitol, what rooms we're going to be in, and the logistics for that. So we've got a couple maps, overhead maps, visuals we'll point to give you all some clarity. We want to make sure you know where you're going to park, where you're going to walk to, which entrances to go in, what you're going to need for those. So we're going to get to that pretty soon as well. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about some of our advocates checklist. If you have not already, please go ahead and register. I know we've got 80 registered currently, but we'll drop a link in the chat. If you've also seen it in probably multiple emails on our Facebook page, our website, or blog. We've got this as a CVent registration, so you'll want to go ahead and do that as soon as you can if you have not already. Eric's doing a good job of kind of looking where our groups are together that can go into a group meeting with their legislator. We would rather attempt to avoid a lawmaker having to meet with 5 different individual AARP meetings when all those could have been scheduled together at the same time, just in one meeting, and sharing our legislative asks. So that's something to consider. And people that are in your area that are also planning to attend Day at the Capitol, just be aware of that. And y'all can maybe have one person, you could say a team captain, to call and schedule your meeting. And then as far as doing that, what we found is a easy way is to call the Legislative Research Commission. You can, and we'll include this number in the chat as well, but you can call the Legislative Research Commission and ask for your House or Senate member. They will transfer you to their staff directly, and you can schedule your meeting for February 23rd and ask for a time, ask for 15 to 30 minutes to visit with your member, and we'll share these legislative asks. So we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that as well. But something else you can utilize is when this meeting is scheduled, when you have called in and scheduled your meeting, we would like to know, our AARP Kentucky staff, Eric, myself, Scott, we would like to know when that meeting is going to take place, what time. And so we're tracking that in kind of a master schedule database, and it's through a Google form. We'll send you the link. So what you can do, it's just like a questionnaire, 10 questions, and you can just fill that in, the time, the date, who you're meeting with mainly, and who's going to be joining you in that meeting. So we're tracking all that. We'd love to know. So please fill out that Google form. We'll send you the link. Like I said, it's just like an online form submission questionnaire. If you have any trouble with that, just feel free to email Eric, Scott, and I. You can send us an email, tell us when the date and time is going to be, or you can tell us other information by phone if needed as well. So as other things, as far as the report back form or feedback that day, we're going to be all at the Capitol together. And so whenever we are wrapping up or before we leave, we're going to make sure that we give you all printed copies of a report back or feedback form. So you're welcome to share your feedback to us. Maybe how a meeting turned out with the lawmaker that you had. Maybe they said they would support a bill, or said they would co-sponsor a bill, whatever the case, or just anything logistics wise you think maybe we could improve for your experience. We'd like to know that. So we'll include that, a printed copies of a report back form that you'll be able to do there at the Capitol as well. And then, another thing that's a good practice, and I know Jack mentioned this as well, and Dwight, if you after you have your meeting, a couple days after, it's just a good idea as a relationship standpoint to maybe handwrite a thank you note and mail that in to back to your lawmaker as well. And so that's a good next step or good practice to do there also. So like we said, this is kind of goes into more detail about scheduling steps. You can see that phone number on there with LRC. You can write this down if you'd like to, but we're also going to be sharing this PowerPoint by email. We'll share reminders for you. We're going to get this information to you again. You're going to see it again, but if you'd like to write this down or save it in your phone, the LRC, Legislative Research Commission, 502-564-8100. And I see Scott's got his hand up. Go ahead, Scott. Something to add there?
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah. Hey, folks, if you can see the chat, I've been loading up all these documents and phone numbers in the chat. So if you want to grab them in there, you certainly can. And we will be following up with more in your email as well. So thank you, Daniel. Back to you.
Sure. Thank you, Scott. So yeah, please keep an eye on the chat messages if you haven't already. Scott's been dropping a lot of great resources in there, things you can download, things you can save, copy, paste, whatever the case. So we'll keep that going as well. And let's see. Oh, this is really handy. I pulled some screenshots from the Legislative Research Commission website. You can look up your legislator when you first go to the site, legislator.ky.gov. You click on that, look at the bottom right of that screen, you'll see who's my legislator, and you click go. When you click that, it's going to bring up a whole map of Kentucky, and you can plug in your home address. Once you've plugged in your home address, you can click and there'll be a little pin that pops up on the map. You'll see your street address, you'll see your house. You can click right beside that, and then it's going to pop up your House and Senate member, and it'll have their profile, their name. And if you click their bio or their profile, it's going to take you to their direct line, their email, more information about them, kind of their history and profile. So that's handy as well. So be sure to utilize this. If you haven't already, you can kind of learn a little bit about your lawmaker before you go meet with them as well. If you need a script or
so
go ahead, Eric.
I wanted to add, some of you might actually, you might have got redistricted, and so you might have a new legislator. So it's good, even if you thought you knew your legislator, maybe you just check because they changed the lines all around. So thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, that's true. With the redistricting, it could have changed. Your House or Senate member could have changed, and I know we had that for a few folks. So please go ahead and double check that to make sure you're setting the meeting with the right person as their constituent. So related, if you're on the phone and you're scheduling your meeting, we've plugged in kind of a sample script if you need that, just to be helpful. And one thing that we're looking for is, like I said, your ask for the meeting is a 15 to 30 minute window. We want to be mindful of our lawmakers, their time, and so we don't want to take up too much of their time. We want to be move forward with the conversation, focus on the legislative ask, and try not to get too far in the weeds on things or derailed. So we'll focus on that. And like I said, Thursday, February 23rd, day of at the Capitol. And as far as a time frame, we're kind of looking in between that 9:30 a.m. To 1:30 range. And one thing to keep in mind too is we're going to have at 8:30, we're going to have our rally together. So if you want to schedule it after that, that's why we're saying 9:30, kind of our committee meeting together to get started, jump started, or our pre-training. Now, if this time frame doesn't work for your lawmaker, you can always, of course, please prioritize the meeting. So if they're only available at 8:45 and you need to go directly to that meeting, that's fine. So please be mindful of that. And then, of course, later in the day, which we'll talk about too with the agenda, we're going to have lunch. So the main thing is prioritizing the meeting that they're available and try to get in to meet with them when you can. Also, not a bad idea to a day or two before the meeting, just if you want to confirm by email with the legislative staff member that scheduled your meeting, say confirm, hey, we're still good for this time, correct? Or you could even call and confirm that as well. But just some best practices there that we found. One thing we'd like to avoid, and this has happened before, is we want to make sure that if a meeting is scheduled that we have somebody there, right? We don't want a meeting scheduled and then something happens and a volunteer can't make it day of, or can't make it to that time frame, whatever the case. If for some reason you cannot make it to your meeting, please let Scott, Eric, and I know, because we want to make sure that we've got at least somebody represented from AARP. If a volunteer can't make it and there's nobody else going, we're going to have a staff person there. We're going to have somebody else there, maybe one of our executive council members. We want to make sure that we've got somebody there in that meeting, and that the legislators not stood up for a meeting that was scheduled, because we'd rather avoid that.
I have a question. This is Margaret.
Hey,
Will there
Margaret, go
be a-
ahead.
Hi. It's been a long while since I've been there. Will there be a map of where our particular representatives are located, where their office is, where we'll be going?
Well, that's a good question. We do have maps of the whole property and kind of where we're going to do parking, what entrances we're going to be in, what buildings we're going to be in. But as far as the actual meeting rooms for where your House or Senate member are, Eric, what's our best practice for that while we're at the Capitol?
Great question. It's going to be a great segue for our next few slides, but we'll have the room number on your packet. It'll have everybody's meeting time, who they're meeting with, and then their the room number of the legislator that you're visiting. And
I guess like their office number.
Yeah, and I guess we'll get in with the etiquette, and then once we get to the map of the folks, then I can get into more detail about what exactly that looks like when we're in the building.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and Eric, Margaret, I'll just add to that. There are really only 3 floors that matter. The second floor is entirely the Senate, and that is open, meaning when you get off the elevator, you'll just see a couple of different hallways. Rooms are clearly marked, and you'll be able to go directly to their room. For all your House meetings, which will either be on the 3rd or 4th floor, there's a reception area, and you just go to the reception desk. There is a card that you need to fill out writing your name and your legislator's name. And there'll be 2 receptionists, both on 3rd and 4th, and they'll help you walk through all that. But it's very, very easy. But on the 2nd floor, for all Senate meetings, you'll have to roam one, but it's very easy.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Appreciate that. And
Thank you.
and that's Jack's referring to the Capitol Annex building, correct? So this is separate from the Capitol Rotunda that you might have seen in pictures or other things if you've been there.
Yeah, all of our meetings are in the annex.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so related, just briefly, we're representing AARP in a nonpartisan way, and we're going to have these talking points available to you, the legislative ask that Eric talked about. So we'll include all that in there as well. If there's a question that you get asked from the legislator that you don't know the answer to, that's fine. If you don't know, you can just tell them that. And you can also say that you'll follow up, and that would be a good question or a way to have kind of a follow-up in that relationship building as well. So be sure to do that also. And all right, Eric, I'm going to kick it over to you. Let's talk about day of agenda.
All right, so we right now, some days it's really crazy at the Capitol. There's a lot of people everywhere, so be flexible when you get there. Be patient. Sometimes there might be lines getting into the Capitol Annex, and so our first part is our kickoff gathering, where you're going to get similar, probably a little shorter version of this training. Mainly going to be going over new information and also talking with you about scheduling your groups together. It's a little bit complicated because we're all coming from different areas of the state, different parts of the city, and so we have to kind of get in our groups, and we'll have that hopefully mapped out for you. Some of them might not be perfect because we had the wrong address or something from your record, so we'll work with you there, but just be flexible, and also know that the legislators, they're used to meeting with a lot of folks, and that's what that's how they got elected. They know a lot of people, and they talk to a lot of people. So our legislative meetings after that training Ideally, you'd want to schedule the meetings from 9:30 to 11:30. That's not going to be totally possible with all of them. They have committee meetings that they're doing. They have other types of meetings, but we're having you call a few weeks early, which is actually kind of early when you're scheduling those meetings. Hopefully they'll have a time that they can put you on their schedule, but a lot of times committee meetings can just pop up. So the day before. So that's kind of something that they don't have any control over. And be compassionate about that. It's actually, they're not shaking you off. They're doing a service to you by showing up and doing the work for your district in their committee meetings. So, and sometimes in the other meetings that they have, some of the nicest legislators in the world would want to meet with their constituents, and that's what they prefer to do. But sometimes just during the day, it's just that busy. Sometimes they'll ask you to meet with them outside of a committee room. I know former Representative Butler had to do that one time with us just because he was so busy that day. He only had about 10 minutes on the way to his committee meeting to talk with us, but he made sure he made time just in that. That was literally the only 10 minutes he had that day. That's
Some
the
days
type
are
of
tight,
thing
Eric,
that
aren't
we'll,
they?
what?
I said, some days are tight.
Yeah. And that was with the American Cancer Society. So it was for a good cause. That wasn't a thing I don't think he was opposed to. So that's how it goes sometimes. And one of the Julie Rocky Adams is on, I think, 4 or 5 committees, and she's on special committees. So she might be difficult to meet with. She's also in leadership. There's those types of things. So wanted to remind you of that. This is something new. It's our 11:30 to 12:15. We're having a Capitol Rotunda rally and press conference where we're going to have speakers in the Rotunda. There's a picture of the Rotunda right there. That's also a picture of our room 171 on the right too. That's our beautiful Capitol. If you've never been there, it's considered one of the most beautiful capitals in the nation, and it's unbelievable. If you have time outside of your meetings, take a tour. Do every it's impressive. It's really interesting to take the tour as well. Then we'll have lunch after all that, and from 12:30 to 1:30 we'll have lunch, and that's in the basement of the Capitol Annex. You can follow whatever they're cooking, the smells of whatever they're cooking that day. So I hope it's their fried chicken. I like their fried chicken. So but it's a pretty good buffet, and we'll have a tab for you basically. There's going to be folks that there's going to be 3 lines. There's going to be a buffet line, salad bar, sandwich line, and then we'll talk to our folks that are doing the cash registers, and they'll have a tab for you. And then you're free to go with that, or you could hang around and watch the legislature if you want, but it's not an obligation or anything. But we're going to have a bus come in around 9:30. So they'll come in a little separate. They're mainly going to attend the rally. Possibly it's a Charlotte's group from Ohio County. We got about 30 coming in, and so we'll join up with another great big group, and it should be fun in that Capitol. So I'll have some of the folks, Charlotte, our folks will be leading those folks around, and so we'll just be wandering around the Capitol all day, being in the lobby like the lobbyists do. So that's what we see there. I guess next slide, unless somebody had anything to add. Maybe we'll go ahead and do the logistics now, and then we'll have Scott talk about media that could possibly occur at that rally, and also that photo. Scott will be in charge. We'll have him talk about that after. This goes on along with Margaret's question. So you see the Capitol Annex there. You see the parking area there to the left. You see handicap entrance there to the back of the building. That there's a road that goes in between the Capitol and the Capitol Annex, and there's a road that goes around to that back entrance for drop-offs if anybody's in a wheelchair or has a hard time with mobility. You can go through there, and it's on the ground floor. You can't park there unless there's an open spot, but I don't think there will be. And then there's also handicap parking in places. That's just the drop-off point. So look for that. There's a Capitol garage that's going to be on your left there. That's where most people are going to come in and park. You can sometimes find parking on the ground level, which, you know, if you're facing the public annex would be on the left. Then you can park in all the spaces that basically aren't blue and say reserved. There's a few white ones kind of in the back. And then if you look, there's also a ramp that goes down. Now you can't park on those first 3 floors because those are reserved for legislators. If you look up on the side of the wall, it's going to have reserved for legislators and staff. So you'll go down to the 6th, 5th, and 4th floors to park. Believe it or not, you're going down to the 6th, 5th, and 4th floors to park. And then if you are in the elevator, you could go up to floor 1, which will be the ground level of the parking lot. And then you'll walk to that the Capitol Annex middle entrance. Now, this is kind of area where it causes a lot of people anxiety because it's a little bit confusing coming out of the garage onto the annex. Where do I go? But the security there is super nice. They basically what they'll do is they'll have you'll go through a medical detector. You'll set your purse or your wallet and your keys and your phone into a like just a normal metal detector. Then you'll go in and sign into an iPad, and they'll give you a sticker, and that says you're good to go throughout the Capitol and throughout the Capitol Annex. And I see Robin has her hand up.
I just want to ask, have you created teams like by issue or by district or anything? You mentioned team captains. I'm not volunteering. I'm just trying to find out if I'm already maybe been assigned to a certain group.
Yes, we'll get with you on that. We're, still taking signups, so we aren't really for sure but we're almost complete with that. So we should be able to let you know. Right now, I believe that you will be let me see if I can pull that up really quick. I was thinking that maybe you are the team lead for your person.
And while Eric's checking that, just to note, folks as well, when you do come into those public entrances for the Capitol Annex building, one thing that you're going to need is a state issued ID, state issued identification to check in. So make sure that you have that with you. Driver's license does count, of course, but just make sure that you've got a state issued ID with you. So when you check in.
Yes, you will be the lead for Donald Douglas and Layman Swan, who's new. So your rep is Layman Swan. Of course, your senator is Senator Donald Douglas.
And so I need to go ahead and try to get appointments set with them.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Tell me if he'll kind of be joining me in these meetings.
Yes, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Give you those names.
Thank you, Robin. Good question.
And I believe the other folks on the line that you will have those. Obviously, Charlotte, she's bringing a big group, and everybody else does have just them right now as their in their team. So if you all could on this call could definitely both call LRC and set those meetings up. And like Daniel said, just 15 minutes is all we need. That's what they'll ask. The scheduler will. But okay, so Margaret also asked about the meetings and how those go. So that middle hallway is also where you go in is also the good place to go right up the elevators, because the wing elevators they take a keypad to get in. So I mean, you'll get off the elevator, you won't get trapped or anything, you just won't be able to get in the doors, but you always are able to get in the middle doors. Second floor is, as Jack said, where you go to meet the senators, and they're in office suites. It'll have their name on there, but it'll also have room number, and we'll have that in your packet. The third and fourth floor, where the representatives are, and they'll have a waiting area like somewhat like a doctor's office, but more fun than a doctor's office. So there'll be a lot of other folks in there. They're used to it. The folks that are the receptionists, they're super nice, super accommodating. But if for some reason you don't have a meeting scheduled, which is going to happen, I mean, that always happens sometimes. You can go in there and see if they can meet with you anyway, even though there's no meeting scheduled, unless they said they just couldn't meet that day, right? So they're used to that. That's what I have to do all the time when I meet with legislators. I don't really have a schedule. I'll just go to the receptionist and see if they can see, just take time to see me. So that's what you'll do in that on floors 3 and 4. And so that goes on to where our rally is. The Capitol Rotunda is in the middle too. There is a underground tunnel on the basement floor of the Capitol Annex in that middle hallway that you can go through. There is a way to get to the other side through the side doors and everything, but I wouldn't, it's easiest to go through the tunnel, especially if the weather's bad that day, obviously. So once you go through the middle of the tunnel, you look for signs for the Capitol Rotunda, which is on the first floor of the Capitol. There are elevators to that first floor, but you can also walk the stairs if you need to. And basically just go to the middle of the Capitol. You should be able to see it. And any questions with that?
Oh, Robin asked, do we know what time the cafeteria opens?
Oh, it's open as
Or
soon as we get
hours?
there. So like
Okay.
if you had time and it looks more convenient for you to eat before the rally, or feel free. We'll try to get the tabs open early. We don't have a private area. It's going to be, sometimes it's chaotic down there. It's hard to find a seat, but all we can do is try to find some spots for you, and we'll make sure we can make it as accommodating as possible for you down there. But bear with us and be flexible on that. It's a capacity issue. It just depends on how many other groups are there. That's one reason we had to move it from the 15th to the 23rd, because there's just going to be too many groups there. So we wanted to make it a little more comfortable. All right, any questions about that? Experienced folks know that there's also a way to get to the garage from a different directions. Your navigator could take you that way. It's pretty obvious. You go up you're down the east-west connector. You're coming down through the east-west connector. Take a right or left, depending on which way you're coming from. Down 413, I believe it is, and it'll take you right into the parking garage. If you're in a bus, the bus needs to park out front of the Capitol Annex and drop folks off. And obviously if you need anybody that's wheelchair accessible, the back door of that Capitol Annex. So I think with that, I'll drop it off to Scott to talk about our media and the fun stuff that we'll do at the rally and group photo.
Folks, thank you all for being with us again tonight. And you can count on us when we get to the Capitol. We're going to be there for you if you have any questions. We're going to have a great mix of volunteers that have done this many times and a lot of folks that are new, and we welcome every one of you that's new. What we're going to do is we're going to encourage you, if you get approached by someone in the media and they want to do a little interview with you, ask them if they can give you a minute. See if you can find one of the staff to be with you, just to answer some of their questions that they may have. You all make the best spokespersons especially when legislators are watching. So keep that in mind. We're going to encourage you to use your social media channels. If you want to pop out a Facebook post or a tweet and say, hey, I'm here today in the Capitol with AARP. We're working for the 50 plus. You are free to do that. I've dropped some hashtags in the chat. So if you're a Twitter user, look for AARP Kentucky at AARPKY. Follow us. We'll retweet you. Use the hashtag. They're KYGA23. That's the current General Assembly hashtag, and legislators look at those hashtags. The other one that we use a lot is hashtag AARPKY, and you could use the hashtag caregiver or caregiving or fraud or scams if you're talking those kind of issues, or with the member of the General Assembly. One of the things that we'll be doing, and this is where you can help us a lot, I am going to work with you, and I'm going to identify your local newspapers and say you're in Nicholasville. The Jessamine Journal is the local weekly paper. I'm going to send them a press release with your picture saying that you were in the Capitol with AARP. These are some of the issues that you were working on and talking to your local legislators. So it's a great way for us to get more information out to legislators back home in the district and the Ohio County Times. We've got a busload coming. So the Ohio County Monitor, the Ohio County Times, we're going to reach out to them and make sure that they know that the AARP was in Frankfort on February 23rd. So it's going to be exciting. And there's a lot of great energy. You're going to make some good connections. You're going to be building relationships with members of the General Assembly. You're going to have a story to tell. Share those stories on social media. Share them with me, Eric, Daniel, staff, and we'll make sure that that also gets out. The one thing that I did want to mention that is in the chat, before you come to Frankfort, if you want to take your phone and you text the word join to 22777, you're going to be signed up for real-time text alerts from AARP on the general on advocacy issues and other general issues. It is about, I think I get maybe 3 or 4 a month. So AARP uses that texting function very sparingly. So again, if you text the word join to 22777, you'll get a message back immediately saying, do you want to join the AARP text SMS message service? And you can say yes. And it takes you 2 minutes, but it's a great way to get updates. And as you know, AARP Kentucky is going to have a busy election cycle. Social Security is not off the table. There's still the issue of solvency, and we're going to continue to work on that as we go forward. For this trip to Frankfort, I'm going to say it, make sure you wear comfy shoes because the floors are marble and you're going to want to be comfortable throughout the day. Again, you're going to have our contact information. We'll be there for you. If there's anything that you need, we'll make sure that we take care of you. So thanks for getting on board. We appreciate this. Is a huge crowd. There's a lot of moving parts, but it's definitely worth the effort because you are the champions for the 50 plus in Kentucky. So Eric, I'll kick it back to you if you have anything else, or if you have any questions, let us know.
Yes. So Scott was right. The floors are all marble, and sometimes my feet are sore after I walk on them all day. So they also dress code. That gets the dress code. Most people are going to be in business attire. Yeah. If you want to have total visibility and wear a t-shirt, it's probably not. It's probably, sometimes it's cold in there, so I don't know if I'd recommend it just for comfort. But you can. I don't mind if you have AARP t-shirt that you want to wear, or AARP sweatshirt. But most people would be more comfortable in business attire just because everybody else is going to be dressed that way. And if you have that AARP red, that's great. Please feel free to do that. We'll have some red lanyards for you and stuff to try to help identify us. But some folks have those red AARP scarves. Some people have the ties, so please wear those if you have them. And
the polos as well, red or
Yes.
black AARP
Yeah.
polo, that would be appropriate as
Yeah.
well. And if you have one of those. I did get a couple questions in the chat. One is Robin Fisher asked, is it best to text to reach us as staff? Like if we're troubleshooting on site that day, that's fine. Texting Robin works, texting us or calling. Sometimes if I'm walking around or talking, I don't always hear my text message go off. So if you don't get a quick response, feel free to call. I see Eric plugged in there as well. Okay, Gary asked a good question directly. He asked, okay, so he's on, and this has to do with the map. So I'll go back to the map. When you go to find your legislator, I realized this pretty quickly too. It's a little extra step you need to take. So you, in the search bar there, you see the map, you plug in your home address, you click search, it's going to populate your house and then, or your road, your area, overhead map. And then you need to click next to that, click next to your pin, an additional click on the map, and then it'll bring up your House and Senate member. If you do not do that, it won't show anything. So
Yeah,
plug in your address, click enter, and then click next to that. Click next to that
click
pin.
on like a yellow bulb looking thing.
Daniel, I
Yeah.
did that and it still wouldn't come up with anything.
It should pop up on the top of your screen if you scroll up.
I'll take a
Yeah.
look again.
Yeah, try it
Yeah.
again, Gary.
It's
Try
tricky
clicking
because of that.
beside or clicking on the actual pin itself. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it looks
has to
like
do
it
with
does
clicks.
nothing, but it looks like it does nothing, but if you scroll up, the legislators appear magically. So
Yeah, Gary, your senator is Jared Carpenter, your District 34. And I'll pop these in the chat for you, but your House district is 8-1. Deanna Frazier is your state rep.
Okay, I knew Carpenter was the same, but I didn't know that who the new representative was.
There you go.
Frazier. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
well, I have no other things to cover on the agenda. So if anyone else has questions, I will be glad to take those. If not, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Gina, I only was 15 minutes over.
Thank you all for being with us.
All right. Well, thank you all, and thank you so much. And pay attention to your email. We'll probably overload you with it, but that's kind of how it's going to have to go because everything's so fluid right now and could be changes. So thank you so much for joining.